Hello and welcome to Radio Free Nintendo. I am James Jones, and I'm sitting here with a copy of the Gex novelization. Why is it here? Because I pulled it off the shelf yesterday. Why did I do that?
You're a fool.
We do things, and I read the first chapter again. It's a lot. I'm just going to release an episode one day that's just me reading the whole episode. Reading the whole book. It's just the whole thing. I'm going to do voices. It's going to be terrible. Y'all are going to have to listen to it.
There has been another podcast I've heard where someone attempted to read it and got about a couple of lines in and was like, I can't do anymore. Broken incredibly quickly.
I read it to John for like a whole chapter once while we were playing some game, and he was miserable. So that's my guideline for if this is a good idea or not.
I was miserable because I wasn't participating in a dramatic reading of it.
Okay, well, I mean, I could get you a copy, and we could just, you could voice characters. The problem is the entire thing is written in first person, so very rarely is there any dialogue. Because Gex doesn't have anybody to talk to. He's just making onomatopoeia at you, and you go like, woohoo! And making bad jokes. Like, he's talking to a camera that's not there. It's very weird. It's a first-person narrator, and it's just... And he's also not he's not a reliable narrator either. Like he is easily distracted because they just wanted to jam references in, which is accurate. Like I give them credit. That's the experience of playing a Gex game. But like it just ends up feeling really manic as a book, which is a hard thing to accomplish. I don't know. It's not good. It's not a good it's the best novel. It is the best novel. So yeah, we'll figure that out. Maybe I can I can reach out to the publisher and see if they'll let me be the official book on tape version of that. And I do mean on tape. I will record it to a cassette tape and send it to audience members for a fee.
Did it read like something that starts, it was the best of times, it was the blurst of times, but then Mr. Burns wasn't there to put an end to it?
So if there is somewhere in this book that joke is made, if the timing of that episode is correct for this to have happened, I would not be surprised at all if they put that in there as a joke. Because it is nothing but references. There's so many references. It is, in a weird way, it is in advance of meme culture. It's a bit like trying to read the script of an episode of of The Mask, the animated series. That's what I would equate the experience of reading the Gex novel to. If somebody just gave you a copy of the script of The Mask, the animated series, and it's like, read this, you would start to have like a brain hemorrhage. And that's kind of the experience. However, I have put so much stupid shit in my brain that I am not afraid of consuming more of it. I am impervious. I am unstoppable. I could get through this book. Now, if there was a Bubsy book, that'd be it. I couldn't. There is a Balan Wonderland novel. I'm not saying I want to read the Balan Wonderland novel. I am simply stating that fucking terrible game has a book, and the book is a different story than the game because Balan Wonderworld, I keep saying world, was meant to be a transmedia property. And it's not even a one media property. So congratulations to all involved in that fucking nightmare.
Yeah, I'd like to see a ratio of how many things are planned as transmedia properties to things that are just terrible.
It's
got to be high. It's like be at least 2 to 1. 3 to 1 maybe.
It's almost a complete circle. Mm-hmm. Like a little sliver on the outside that's like, Pokemon lives here. You may... Wow. Balan. I can't... So I'm pretty sure this is somebody fucking around, but Balan Wonderworld : Maestro of Mystery, Theater of Wonders, which is 2 subtitles. You don't get to have 2 subtitles. Has a 4.5 rating on Amazon. I'm confident this is someone just fucking around. It's gotta be. There's no way. And your customers find the story thrilling, enjoyable, recontextualizing the game. They describe a book as an engrossing read that enhances the experience of the video game. Characters are well developed with enough exploration to develop deep emotional attachment. Readers appreciate learning more about the Wonder World and its working. Remember last week, or it was 2 weeks ago, when we said that the email couldn't figure out that the person writing about their fear of AI losing the money was satire? I'm just going to go ahead and say Amazon's AI is not doing any better.
Mm-hmm.
Just a jaw-droppingly beautiful story for such a subpar game. I don't believe you. I don't believe you. I just don't believe you. A must for people who like the game, so no one. Cool. A huge fan of the video game and this novel. Definitely not true. All right, so that's cool. Wow. Anyway, yeah, I'm James Jones. Also joined today by Greg Leahy.
Ahoy, hoy, everyone.
John Lindemann.
Great to be here, James.
And Guillaume Vayette.
Good evening.
Good evening. Today is February 13th, 2025. I had to think about that way too hard, which means tomorrow is Valentine's Day. That's your reminder that you will hear in the past. And you will go, shit, I fucked up. You're welcome. I want to also point out that the customers who bought this book also read is nothing but Sonic the Hedgehog comics. Just take from that what you will.
And they probably have every issue of the Sonic the Hedgehog comics thinking that they're going to rise in value.
It's not one Sonic the Hedgehog comic either. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. 25 Sonic the Hedgehog comic books are in the customers who read this also read. What the hell? What in the fresh hell?
Hey, you talk about a perfect circle.
Yeah.
The Venn diagram is pretty close there between Bubsy and Sonic the Hedgehog.
I'm gonna go ahead and ask Amazon to not refer to this as literature. Thank you. Anyway, we're not going to talk about Balan Wonderworld today, which is not Wonderland. Despite the fact that I want to call it Wonderland, I will always want to call it Wonderland. I will continue to call it Wonderland. It is inevitable. This is episode 914, by the way. I don't think I said that. And I'm going to kick off new business. I'm going to kick off new business with something I can't really speak all that much about. So I have the review copy of Tales, the Stories from Soul, there's no colon here. Stories from Soul, the Gundog. This is the PC-88 looking visual novel that got promoted on the eShop a number of months back. They dropped the demo. It looked really cool. Had some good music. And if you played the demo on Switch, you might have not been able to progress out of the second room. I couldn't. I believe Guillaume got stuck in the same place.
That's right.
I'm not allowed to talk much about what I've seen so far. What I will tell you is that I did not get stuck leaving the second room. And there's no trick to getting past there. It was just busted. So I have no problem. Or maybe that was the whole demo. Maybe they just wanted you to see the graphics and that was it. Maybe that was the whole demo. So if you've played the demo as much as it can be played, your character has been posted as security officer on a small support ship called Gundog, as part of the Jupiter Defense Fleet. Something like that. Jupiter Colonial Fleet, something like that. And he is, you could pick all the stuff, has been assigned to the ship as a security detail officer. And the opening video makes it clear that he was formerly a pilot, had a very, very bad experience in a battle, and with the ending of war is no longer a pilot. So he is now just a security officer. And as far as I've gotten, he is walking through the ship with one of his crew members. And this is like a very small ship. This is basically the equivalent of a backwater posting for spaceships. Tiny crew, small ship, and maybe not super important to anybody else. And so far all I've done is gotten the tour. I've met the crew. It's weird and quirky anime characters. Like this very much feels the riff of like a 1993 anime cast. Actually, let me take that back. When did 08 MS Team come out? Because the people who wrote this game feel like they've seen that show. That show came out in 96. Okay, that's the era I'm going to peg the cast to. 1996. which kind of works for PC-88. I will say this game is gorgeous. Like, they really nailed the PC-88 anime visual novel effects all over the place. The opening cinematic is green screen. The game is not. There are a couple different visual forms you could take, including a green screen. I have it in the color mode right now. The character designs are absolutely on point for that era of anime. The tech designs are a weird mix of like future space technology and technology that was modern, not in that era even. Like we've run into a character who has a cassette player and is listening to his jams on the cassette. There is in fact that is a trope that shows up in a number of different Gundam series, which the gun dog is not exactly being subtle. And in fact, they look like Leos, which are mobile suits from the Gundam series. Damn it. They do. It just hit me now. They look like Leos. Okay. Anyway, I can't talk a lot about it right now, but, so far, I've only got maybe an hour or so in. It is a visual novel. Like you are, kind of an adventure game too, I guess. You're just I'm literally just walking around with this other crew member while she gives me a tour of the ship. And I can, at any point, any of the rooms we're in, I can talk to her, and we'll have a conversation about the space we're in. I can look at things in the room. You don't have to just tap to see what you can look. If you pick look from the option or use, you can just press right and it highlights all the things that are interactable in the room. So you just keep tapping right through, you get through them. I've been taking my time just having all the conversations with her in all the rooms because I find some of them pretty funny. There's some back and forth dialogue. I don't know how much of it comes into so-and-so will remember that kind of space. We went to the mess hall and we ran into another crew member who asked me if I knew where her room was, and my choices were ellipses and yeah, sure, ? Now everybody's room is in it's a tiny ship. Like, all the crew is in one spot. So I was like, yeah, I guess. I mean, I could find it. It's going to be one of 3 doors. And the other character got mad at me and then wouldn't talk to me. So there is a little bit, at least in the context of that space. I don't know if any of that carries over through the game, but we'll find out. So yeah, like, it comes out on the 20th, I think. So like a week from recording. So I'll be more free to talk about it next week. I'll also have a lot more time in place with it, but I just wanted to call it out. If you played that demo and are immediately like, that problem does not seem to be in the retail release. So I did get it post launch day patch. We were holding off a little bit on that, so how I'm getting it is how you will play it. So yeah, I'll hope to have a review out before the game comes out. I don't know how long it is, so we'll see. But I've got some time coming up where I'll have time to play it. Also, some of the music's really good. Next week, Greg, I might throw you an end theme from it if that music's already been ripped, which it probably will have been, and we have access to music to listen to. Because there's some really good stuff in here that, again, is very much keeping with the kind of music that those computers could make. So I appreciate the verisimilitude of this being a PC-88 game. By really embracing it. So I'll make that available is whenever that music comes up. But what I actually have spent some time playing with, I, for no reason whatsoever, really, I usually just say for whatever reason, but there is no reason for this one. A couple years ago, when there was a Total War sale, bought a Total War Saga game. And if you're not familiar with this, I imagine most of our audience is at least vaguely familiar with the Total War series. They had they'd been around before this, but they had their real big breakout moment with Rome, which came out in like 2004 or 5. It's a long ass time ago now. Sega ended up buying the company that makes them, the Creative Assembly, and they've pumped out a bunch of Total War games since then. So basically, these are grand strategy games where you're responsible for developing both the economy and military of your empire, and then you can fight these battles on screen. The appeal of the series really broke out because unlike things like Age of Empires, where your armies just sort of clash on the screen and you just kind of watch them, you can control the formation of units on the battlefield. You can execute some kind of battlefield tactics and strategy and try to make things happen. They released a series called Total War Sagas, which I think Fall of the Samurai was the first time they used that phrase, which I've played a lot of. But Total War Saga is like these smaller focused games, because the whole idea is they're big grand strategy things. Like they did Three Kingdoms, it's massive. They did Rome, it's massive. I think Pharaoh just came out. Again, it's huge. They've done some Warhammer themed stuff. They're also very big, but they're a little bit different. And Rome 2 is gigantic. And I really enjoy these games to some degree or another. They all have their weird quirks and you can get stuck in them. I don't know why I picked up this one, but this is Thrones of Britannia, which is set in like 860 AD in the UK and Ireland. It's weird. So like, in order to make the game feel smaller, which would be relevant in that particular era of time, because you're dealing with lots of like, the kingdom is the size of what would be a neighborhood these days. Just sort of all at each other's borders and throats. There's like a weird sense, you could just, how they divide up the territory is very different than every other Total War game, where you can grab little pieces of it rather than having to go big bang and take the whole thing, which has forced me to really rethink how I play this game, because I'm pretty good at these. I'm pretty good at these in general. And I got my ass absolutely handed to me. Now, I picked the hard faction to start it with and to learn the game because fuck it, I can figure this out. This is easy. Nope. No. They really seem to have embraced creating mechanics that force you to fight this kind of in a period correct way of, I'm not going to throw big armies into apocalyptic battles because I don't have those. I don't have big armies. I have tiny little things. And instead, like, resorting to raiding and stuff. So I have had a good-ish time trying to learn that, trying to break my brain to not do my normal tactic of big, for lack of a better word, orchestrated sweeps, where I plan meticulously for like 7 to 10 hours of gameplay, and then on a dime suddenly move to action and resolve everything in like half an hour. It's kind of my MO for these, meticulously overplan and then just win. That's not possible here because of constraints they've put into the game, like the food resources, which is the thing in some of the other ones, but it feels particularly aggressively tough in this one. So I kind of like it. I kind of like the smaller scale. I like the setting. It's kind of a cultural mess at that point, which is historically relatively accurate. You've got 4 or 5 different cultures all kind of strangling each other. And yeah, it always feels like something's on fire. Maybe not for me right now, because I'm out in Wales and I've basically just crushed everybody around me and I'm just sitting there going, don't come over here. I don't want to deal with you. But pretty much every turn, just over the horizon, something is completely falling apart. And it's like, well, do I want to go get involved in that mess right now? Or do I want to stay away from it? I think I'm going to stay away from it for right now. And then occasionally I just get dragged into it. And like, there is something about learning a new one of these that I really enjoy. If you like strategy games, there is something to that. Rome is amazing because there's so many different factions in it and they all play so friggin' differently that you get to have that experience 7 or 8 times. Empire, which is really old now, has a similar kind of mechanic of just like the game is just different depending on where you start. But I spent a lot of time with Shogun 2 lately, and Fall of the Samurai is kind of an add-on to Shogun 2, where the factions don't really play that differently to some degree. It's more that because of the rapid industrialization, they change so much so fast that you're constantly forcing to relearn what you want to do. This one, because they have a thing where Vikings will just show up. And you'll just get a memo saying, like, Vikings are landing in the south. And I'm like, it sucks for them. And then I got one, and I'm like, that sucks for me. And so constantly pivoting. And I actually really like that. I like that I'm being constantly forced to pivot. It's frustrating. It's so frustrating because my brain wants to meticulously plan everything. That's what I do. It's why I'm successful at these. I don't leave things to chance. When I make my move, I already know the outcome. And it's not letting me do that. It's not letting me plan. It's not letting me resource hog. It's not letting me dig in and prepare and just be like, I'm just going to build like 7 armies and drop them on your ass. You're not going to know what's going on. It's like, no, you don't have the food for that. You just can't do it. So you figure it out. You go launch small armies to go raid if you want. And so like trying to do that, trying to grab little pieces of land without a fight by just showing up and being like, this is mine now, has a different kind of appeal. I can't just build a unit in an army and I get it. Like I recruit, which means I have to plan ahead for that. But the game also doesn't let you plan but so far ahead before throwing chaos at you. There is a joy to this that I'm having, even though, picking one of the Welsh factions to start with when the game's like, you probably shouldn't do this. This is going to be really hard and you're going to be miserable. It's right. It was absolutely right. That was a terrible decision by me. But I thought, I got this. But now I do kind of got this. Maybe not like all the way got this, but I survived. Like I didn't survive the first time. I've survived the second time. It got a little tight, but I'm enjoying it. I'm enjoying learning new mechanics, learning a new system, learning what this game expects of me. The tactics for combat, I totally misread them the first time I played it, my first playthrough, and I sort of figured it out the second time by accident. But again, it's in part because I had to understand what my faction brings to the table, and learning that is part of the fun here. So, I don't think it's ever going to be quite as fun as Fall of the Samurai when I had all the ironclads that the game allows to be available in game, because there's a limit. Because Japan could only import so many, and I had so much money, I bought all of them, and then nobody was allowed to just use the water anymore, which is a problem. If you're an island nation, I just denied them the water. But this is pretty fun all the same. It's not quite as fucking broken as that was, but it's a good time. I don't know why I bought this a couple years ago. My laptop at the time couldn't play it. The new one can, and I just tried it. Like, maybe this one could play it, and sure enough, it could. It was probably on sale for like $2, is my guess. This is probably why I did it, because these games go on sale a lot. I will recommend. I don't have any experience with Rome 2 because I've never had a PC that could play it. There is a remaster of the original Rome. It's very, very good. I've heard pretty good things about Rome 2. I want to play Pharaoh. I need to get a PC to play it. But yeah, like if you've never played these but you like strategy games, I think they're definitely worth pursuing. Like I said, they're very different than a lot of sort of world strategy games where you have to build your empire and your army and stuff, because you do have the choice of controlling it granularly on the battlefield with concerns for things like terrain and water and like where your army should be positioned and how much ammunition they're carrying around and shit like that. It's not just number bounce against other number. It's a real, you can fuck it up with your formations getting out of sync. And I had a battle just the other day where I fucked it up because I didn't control my formations and they broke and I got enveloped and it was all over. Why? Because I took my eyes off the ball thinking, I got this shit. I'm the best. I'm the best there's ever been. Think you got me? Nah. This isn't a Civ game. Like, just to be clear, there's some parallel, but not a lot. But they're worth a look if you never played one of these and you like those other kinds of strategy games. So, that's it for me. I did want to call out that there's been an upsurge in jigsaw puzzles coming back to the eShop. I'm very excited to review them with all of you sometime in the near future.
There's jigsaw puzzles, virtual jigsaw puzzles.
Oh, there's hundreds of them in the eShop.
This is not a thing I understood. In my mind, it now makes perfect sense to me.
Now, what do you think a lot of them are of?
Would they be hentai?
I mean, they're often called hentai, but no, they're anime girls. I actually did a stream of one because chat got to pick what games I bought, and it was fucking terrible. But then we have Cosmic Fantasy 4 Van's Return. That has actual partial nudity, so congratulations to that team. Wow. Here we are. But yeah, that's going to do it for me today. John, bring me something that's very topical and modern.
I can't do that for you.
Okay.
I can bring you something that is obscure. And completely non-topical.
Okay.
So way back in the day on the PSP. That's how I'll start
I like that John's already laughing at his own punchline. This is a good start.
Yeah. Well, yeah, so that's the thing. One of the things that's been interesting is because, James, what we do at Christmas typically is we stock up on PlayStation Plus and we stock up on Xbox Game Pass for the year.
Yeah.
So, of course, with PlayStation Plus, what I did this year is they had a deal where for the rest of your subscription length, so mine goes out to May, you can upgrade for a discount to the top tier of PlayStation Plus, which is, I don't know what it is, Premier or something. And so I didn't really care about it, but I'm finding out that it's actually pretty good. It's much better actually than they advertise. I think they do a horrible job advertising the benefits of it, like talking about like which games you can stream and things like that. And one of the things that I didn't even realize that they were doing is that they're remastering PSP games. Now, there's not a lot of PSP games out there that are, really too great. But, like anything else, there's definitely some sentimental attachment to some of these games, like I'm hoping that they come out with something like Monster Hunter Freedom Unite. That would be pretty cool. But I mean, these are not just re-releases on PS5. They add in rewind and the ability to, save some games where you couldn't save it before. So, and they do some up-resing, I guess. So
yeah.
They actually do take these games and these PSP games and they make them better and then release them. And they just go along with the service. They're given to you for free. So one of those games is Killzone Liberation. Of course, I'm a Killzone fan from back in the day, and Sony has just completely abandoned that franchise.
Wait, what was the last Killzone game? So Liberation came out in 06.
Shadowfall.
Oh my god, that's a long time ago.
Yeah, that was like one of the launch games for the PlayStation 4.
Yeah.
So, it's been a long time since there's been anything Killzone related. I mean, much like they did with the Resistance franchise as well. They just pretty much stepped back from their own development of first-person shooters entirely.
Are there any characters from these franchises that people should know about?
Well, Rico, of course.
And what is Rico's catchphrase?
I believe it's Greg. Is it "Eat my bullets"?
That's how I remember it.
Exactly. Yeah, Rico. I really do have to do a playthrough of Killzone 2 again, and probably Killzone 3 because I feel like I'm a little bit lacking on the real high points of the terrible dialogue in these games.
So Shadowfall is the last game. It came out in 2013.
Yeah, they've abandoned it.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. It was never, that was back when Sony was they were always trying to out Halo, and they never succeeded. But they did make some good games, and I think they actually made some underrated games.
And then they just bought Bungie and called it a day.
Yeah. What a weird journey that is, right? Like, I guess if you can't beat them,
buy the husk that was them.
Exactly. Buy the game that is trying to be what Halo was, but isn't, and is kind of failing at it. So, but yeah,
if somebody's willing to sell you their service game they spent a bunch of money on, you probably shouldn't buy it.
No,
it's probably a red flag.
Well, and the whole thing, to completely sidebar here, but I mean, the whole thing with buying Bungie was to help them with all of their other live service games, which they then went and canceled.
Yes.
so now Bungie's expertise beyond Destiny 2 really doesn't mean a whole lot. And I'm sure if you ask the fan base of Destiny 2, the word expertise is probably not what they would use. So
I mean, it might get used in the sentence.
Yeah. But, so live service games are hard and expensive to keep going. Live service games they sound great on paper, but then when you actually have to keep people interested in them and spend money to do so, it's not that interesting anymore. So I really don't know why they ever tried to go into that as hard as they did, but here we are. We're pretty much back where they started, saying, hey, let's do some single-player games. So, but anyways, Killzone Liberation. This is an interesting little game. I feel like I would probably say it. I use the word little, probably say it about every single PSP game, but this is an isometric shooter, of course, set in the Killzone universe. And, I won't even go into the plot. I've barely been paying attention to it. But it's interesting because it's not really, it's an action game, but it's a very deliberately paced action game, which is actually kind of neat. Like, I don't think I ever beat this game. I still have my PSPs around, so I could play the original copy of this, but I don't think I ever beat it. The one thing I do like about playing these on PS5 is that you get much better controls overall than on any PSP console. You can change the control schemes and stuff like that. Like, that's why I would love to see Monster Hunter Freedom Unite, because you could actually play it with a normal control scheme rather than having to, have a claw going to get at all the different inputs on the controller that it requires. But yeah, this one, you are an ISA operative, and you are, dumped into the battlefield, and you have to go through, and you're hopping into different types of things. Like, you're hopping into cannons that you can control, and you can set C4 and blow things up, and of course you meet Rico, and he's like, oh yeah, my trigger finger was just getting warm, kind of thing. It's like all very manly. But it's good though. I mean, the game still looks good. I find these PSP games, they have a certain charm to them. They just have a certain look. They're it's interesting because it's not quite as good as PS2, but it looks better than PS1. They're right there in the middle. So they just have all these games have an interesting look to them. But yeah, it's pretty cool kind of reconnecting with this game after a while. Also played a little bit of Resistance Retribution, which, as I recall...
Wow.
Because that's
are you on too, like a death tour?
It's like these games, I find these games fascinating because they're just they're so strange. It's because this is a time period when Sony was trying to take these franchises and kind of ham-fistedly force them onto the PSP.
Wasn't one of their shooter franchises turned into a top-down thing? I feel like one of them actually got made into something different.
I mean, you might be thinking of Liberation, but there's another one. There's another one. I think I know what you're thinking of. Guillaume, did you have something?
No, well, I did get a free Killzone game, probably because of at some point PSN went down and they were giving out free games back then.
Which it never happens now. PSN goes down.
No, never.
No, well, the giving away games.
That part actually doesn't happen now.
Well, it is Killzone Liberation. It is top down.
Okay. Yeah.
Roughly. It's more kind of like Diablo sort of viewpoint.
But rather than how the Killzone games played, which were first person, correct?
Oh, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yep. So it's very different. So you have a full view of the battlefield and you're sort of wandering through these trenches, yeah.
Rest in peace, Ben Studios. I mean, they're not dead, but it's tough sledding.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, rest in peace. To the folks that made Resistance Retribution. That studio doesn't even exist anymore.
But that's Ben Studios.
Is it Ben Studios?
Ben made that. Yeah. That was why I was like, they didn't close, did they? I know they've had some pretty rough hits lately, but they have not closed.
Yeah, I think the last thing they did was Days Gone?
Days Gone.
Was that Ben?
Days Gone. Then it was
which which ironically is coming back in remastered form that nobody asked for.
Yeah, well, so what's funny is, so they did Bubsy 3D, and then they did the Siphon Filter games.
Yeah.
Like, back to back, that was it. Bubsy 3D, Siphon Filter 1, 2, 3, and Omega Strain. And then Dark Mirror so then they did 2 Siphon Filter PSP games. PS2/PSP games, so really good stuff. Then they did a Resistance PSP game and a Siphon Filter PSP game. Then they did the 2 Vita Uncharted's, and then they did Days Gone.
The Vita Uncharted's were good.
What a career arc. Honestly, that's an amazing career arc. I don't know where it's going, but it's something. I thought they had a game get canceled. Maybe not. Maybe they they did. Yeah, 2025, January. That Sony canceled a live service game in development at Ben Studios. That's what I thought.
Oh yeah, recently, yes.
Yeah,
they were the ones that had the 5 or 6 live service games that got nixed.
Could be 7 by now, who knows?
Yeah.
So,
well, they had 12 and now they're down to like what, 2, 3
something
maybe?
like that, yeah. It's like Nintendo and their mobile games. Just keep killing. So all right, so you played Resistance Retribution, you played Killzone Liberation. Did they both kind of adapt the gameplay to fit better on the platform, or was Liberation closer to how the Killzone game played?
I mean, both of those games aren't really, well, I mean, if you want to talk about trying to be a first-person shooter, then certainly Resistance Retribution is closer. It's trying to be that. The problem is you have to control the camera with the face buttons.
Oh no!
So you move around with the D-pad. So you move your character forward and back and strafe with the D-pad, and then yes, you move the camera up and down and left and right with the buttons. So that's why it was always just incredibly goofy, and that's why it's actually better to play it in this version, because you don't have to do that with the face buttons. You just use the right stick.
Didn't the PSP have a stick though?
No, the original PSP.
I thought it did.
It had a nub.
It had a little nub.
It had a nub. Yeah, it had a nub.
Yeah,
but that was not used for the camera.
No, but why would
maybe that was used for movement?
Okay, but say that was like, why would you use that for move? Why would you use the D-pad? That'd be insane.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah.
Well, sorry, not the D-pad. Yeah.
The nub. Okay.
You use the nub.
I was
and then you use the
like, this game's crazier than I thought it was.
And then you use the D-pad. Yeah. And then you use the D-pad to like change like grenades and weapons and stuff like that.
Okay, that makes more sense. All right.
Yeah. But so they were trying to effectively take a first-person shooter setup and graft it onto a set of controls with only one stick. So
no.
So it was very much a little bit of like N64 style, some of that kind of stuff too. You know, where you had the camera buttons. Yeah, it was using the face buttons as the camera buttons in that case, which was very weird and made gameplay very slow and very clunky. And it's strange when you play it like this with sort of a proper setup, because it feels really slow, and it starts to dawn on you that it's really slow because the controls are really bad and they have to compensate for that. So they have to actually allow the player more time to do what they have to do because the controls are so clunky. So
I'm trying to think if there's any 3DS first-person shooters that I could think of, like that are traditional FPS style. I can't think of any.
It was more on DS, weirdly.
Yeah.
You know, I guess I don't know how many. Obviously, you've got a little bit. It's not first person, but you've got a little bit of it in the on-ground sections of Kid Icarus Uprising. Yeah. You know, sort of throwing back to that Metroid Prime Hunters DS style of, like, you know, the spinning the globe thing, as they put it, you know, using the stylus to essentially move the camera in that way. So that was, you know, certainly gave you a lot more freedom, and it was a lot more fast acting than having use C button style. But you get into the issue of, supporting the weight of the system with your hand, which was more of an issue with 3DS because it was quite bulky. That first model, especially, hence the stand that came with the Kid Icarus Uprising. So I'm not sure how many games kind of
Federation Force
plumped for that kind of thing. Yes, Federation Force later.
Moon
that's
and Dementium. Those are the only ones I could think of.
And they were like DS ports, right?
Moon and Dementium were,
They were on DS first. So again, I don't know how many games were, which, I mean, given the stereoscopic effect, you might have thought, some people might have thought that in first person would have been kind of interesting, but
because DS had the Call of Duty games, I think there were like 3 of them. Because I remember I almost got stuck reviewing the World at War after I reviewed the Wii version of World at War, and I was not having that. Again, there were the 2 Dementiums. There was the GoldenEye game. Mm-hmm. And there was, Metroid Prime Hunters. And then there was the pinball game. God, what was his name? It was a joke on NWR for years. Greg Hastings. Yeah, there it is. So yeah, you're right. The DS had way more. Way more.
Yeah.
That's weird. I wonder, I kind of want to go play one of those.
Yeah, it just feels like during this time period, first-person shooters were all the rage, so there was a lot more... there's just a lot more desire to try to make it work on these other platforms.
Whereas by the time...
Because I don't think there were many... and of course, when the Vita came out, it had 2 sticks on it, so...
Yeah, which I guess by the time the 3DS came around, it was... the bubble had kind of burst on the first-person shooters, so that wasn't as pivotal to try to get them on there as it was for the DS. But also, it wasn't as successful as the DS, and there were less companies willing to get in bed with it.
Yep.
Like Activision just wasn't there to put out. I'm looking at it now. What appears to be 5 Call of Duty first-person shooters on the DS.
Mm-hmm.
That's nuts. Why? Like I guess they sold well because they kept making them.
Yeah, must have been worthwhile. There must have been some money in it. So
yeah, like I kind of want to know what Black Ops, Modern Warfare 3, World at War, Modern Warfare 4. I kind of want to know what World at War DS was like. Like, was it?
I don't think they were bad. I don't think they reviewed very badly.
Let's go find.
Because I think once they got the sort of formula down, I think they were actually pretty.
It had online play.
Pretty full featured, as I recall. Yeah,
we gave it an 8. Yeah. Johnny gave it an 8.
Yeah,
Dr. Metz gave this game an 8 in 2008. Yeah. 8. I'm just keep saying 8. Apparently.
Yeah, I remember those games being pretty good.
Yeah. In fact, I didn't need to go try to remember all this shit from memory. Johnny did it for me. The DS launched the demo Metroid Prime Hunter system has had few noteworthy first-person shooters. It seems to be changing with recent upcoming games like Dementium, Call of Duty 4, Moon, bringing World War II experience to the handheld platform. World at War is unique and high-quality entry in the portable shooter field. There we go. Thank you, Johnny, for giving me the answer I was so desperately looking for.
Yep. From
N-Space. Hey, remember N-Space?
Yeah.
Wow. So many things. So many.
Now, do they still exist?
They can't possibly still exist. It's not possible. I just don't believe it.
I know that they existed long after I thought that they were out of business, because they were mainly a port shop for the longest time.
It does not. 2016.
N-Space is defunct. Okay.
Yeah. In March 2016, it was announced that N-Space had closed down for unknown reasons. I mean, are they really unknown reasons, or are they just unsaid reasons? I'm going to go with...
Wow, their last game.
Go ahead.
Last game was Sword Coast Legends. Published by Digital Extremes.
Yeah.
How strange.
That is very weird. They did a WWE mobile game, didn't they?
Yeah. WWE 2K Mobile.
And then they did a bunch of...
Go figure.
They did a bunch of 3DS games. I remember that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Weird.
That Mary-Kate and Ashley Sweet 16 License to Drive, it's a banger. GameCube and PlayStation 2.
All right, so when you say that, I have played that game. It is not a banger. But I had a little sister growing up, and that game was made in the house at one point, and it was told, quote, I can't beat this. It must be impossible. And then I was like, it can't be impossible. Give it to me. And I was like, no, it just sucks. Congratulations.
But then they followed that up. They followed that up with Geist and then GoldenEye.
It's basically the same game.
Yeah. Yeah.
There is a retroactive from the show on Geist, by the way, where we spoke to the producer he was working on the Nintendo side of the house. If you want to go listen, it's one of the earliest retroactives. It's like retroactive 3 or 4. But that's available to you right now because there is 900 plus episodes of this fucking show. What episode is that on? I don't remember. I don't know. I mean, I can maybe find. I mean, that's so old that we weren't marking episodes to podcast. Like we weren't marking what podcasts were on there. It might be 163 and 165.
Yeah. I just remember having
it's Haunted Dog Food is the title.
That's 163.
Okay.
That's one of the titles anyway.
Yeah, we spoke to Jeff Callis on that one. He was the associate producer at NOA.
Yeah, that's him.
And then 165 was the second part. That one's Spectral Dog Walker.
Mm-hmm. I just remember us always having it out with Dan O'Leary.
Yeah. That was because of the X-Men game, wasn't it?
Yeah, he did not like our reviews, generally.
Wait, there was one review in particular of which he was not a fan. Were you reviews editor at that point?
I think, I was.
Nice.
I went back and forth with him. I think it was one of my reviews, was it not, that he didn't
I don't remember. I just remember, were they the ones who said something on their Facebook page?
I don't remember, but I just felt like
it's so good
for us. The thing is that what's funny is that we're such a small outlet.
Leave us alone.
This guy is just obsessed with
Your
us.
Your game sucks, bro. Your game sucks.
Yeah. Well, or was that with Zach when he couldn't review? Was it Moon? I think it was Moon. Wasn't it?
I'm afraid to go near any commentary on any Zach review.
Yeah, I think it was the one where he was saying that
I respectfully decline.
Well, yeah, I think it was Moon, and I believe that was because they did do Moon, right?
They might. No, I don't think so. I don't think it's based.
Okay, they didn't do it.
That was Jules Watsham, wasn't it? Moon.
It was.
Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
Maybe it was it might have been one of the Call of Duty ones. Or no, it was was it Heroes of Ruin?
We did have a Call of Duty one that I remember there was something happened on the review and there was some weird shit.
I think it was Heroes of Ruin, I think.
They did not.
I think that's the game that it was.
There is an X-Men game, but it wasn't theirs that we got in it with somebody about, but it wasn't that because they never made one.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was Heroes of Ruin where we had. But anyways, I think Zach could never get the online to work,
which was not that uncommon with Nintendo Network games.
Right, and so I mean, usually this stuff is pretty easy to get working, so it's pretty cut and dry.
Unless it wasn't. Sometimes it just wasn't.
Yeah. But and so he docked them points, and Dan O'Leary did not like that.
It wasn't Heroes of Ruin.
I want another.
We gave that an 8, so it wasn't that one. But
okay,
yeah, there was something. I just can't remember what game it was.
Yeah, I think it might have been one of the Call of Duty ones, but I don't know. But anyways, there was one where Dan O'Leary did not like the fact that apparently Zach had problems with his online and could not get it to work no matter what he tried.
I love it. I love it. I love all of this.
It was great, yeah, and it just kept going on and on and on. It was fairly passive aggressive.
They also made Mary-Kate and Ashley Magical Mystery Mall, which I also was subjected to because again I had a little sister, that one's worse. That one is worse. So if you're trying to create a stratigraphy of Mary-Kate and Ashley games, I've never played Crush Course. It doesn't even have a Wikipedia article. That's probably not a good sign. I would say License to Drive is a better game than Magical Mystery Mall. I would say you're still not talking about a good game. You are talking about a game that is non-functional to a game that is marginally a game.
And it reminds you of a movie with the Coreys in, right?
Exactly.
That was the name of that, right?
License to Drive. Yep.
Yeah.
There's some there's some stuff on their list that I can't.
The thing is, I can't hate on them too much.
They kept the lights on.
They are really. That's absolutely. They were shameless in the way that they were like, we are going to do this stuff to keep the lights on. Like we're going to have if you look at their projects, you could tell that there was some stuff that they did just for the money. And it's funny, I started reading, I got to go back to it, but Jason Schreier's latest book on Blizzard. Mm-hmm. And it's funny because that's exactly what they were doing, is they were trying to like kind of get their own stuff started, but then they were just they were pretty much just doing like code. They were just doing game ports for Interplay at that time because they knew Brian Fargo over at Interplay, those Blizzard guys.
Yeah.
And so that's exactly what they were doing. They were just doing code ports to keep the lights on, much like what N-Space does here, where they would have clearly one of their kind of like more like marquee projects interspersed with a whole bunch of
Jillian Michaels' Fitness Adventure.
Yeah, exactly. That were just there to get some money in, that they knew that they could just throw a couple of guys at and they could port it over and get some money in the coffers and just keep going and keep funding other projects.
3DS port of Roller Coaster Tycoon.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, they did what they had to do. So, and they did create some pretty good games, in their time. So
I want bad to see the canceled PS2 Austin Powers game from Rockstar. That N-Space was developing. I want to see that so bad. I don't know how far it got. I just want to know. I want to see the canceled Xbox 360 Halo Mega Bloks game because Lego games were becoming popular. But Halo's had the license with Mega Bloks. Oh,
and with them, I mean, they would just be sitting there, just really hoping that they would come off just to have a huge franchise like that.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Because even though, like, regardless of the quality of the game, it would, sell units.
If you haven't seen it, since we're off topic, we're so far off topic. If you haven't seen it, there are 2 Game Boy Color games that came out around 2000 published by Rockstar. One of them was the previously mentioned Austin Powers Oh Behave. And the other is Austin Powers, Welcome to My Underground Lair. They were both developed by, of all people, Tarantula, which is a Rockstar Studios. I want to.
Yeah, they're pretty good.
Yeah,
as I recall too. They made some really good games for DS, especially.
Welcome to My Underground Lair was Dr. Evil themed. If you couldn't figure that out, these aren't even games. They're just like weird apps. But the reviews on them are kind of amazing. But if you just want to see like fucking weird, like how did you convert this into Game Boy Color art photos? Oh yeah, these 2 games. This makes the House DSiWare games where it's just like the sprite work is just like a picture of House in a rainbow mask. It makes that look normal. Just go find the sprite sheets for Austin Powers Oh Behave and Welcome to My Underground Lair. You'll thank me later. Also, if anybody doing Mario Party Monthly is listening, which by the way, Mario Party Monthly is the first Friday of every month at Nintendo World Report's Twitch page, where 4 otherwise well-meaning individuals subject themselves to Mario Party, and then the loser gets punished. And I don't mean they play more Mario Party. This is definitely the kind of stuff you might get punished with, is Austin Powers Oh Behave / Welcome to My Underground Lair. But, yeah, you should go look at these. They're fucking amazing. It's truly moment in time shit. Truly
Sometimes what didn't happen is more interesting than what did happen.
I desperately want to know what the PS2 port of Oh Behave was going to be, because there's literally nothing to this fucking game. It's just like, there's like a Pac-Man thing. It's just like a bunch of dumb mini games. Was that what did they really plan to port that to the PS2? Jesus Christ!
They could have made it work.
I mean, no, they couldn't. That's the part that's so funny.
They would have found a way. That's the whole thing. That's what N-Space does, man. They find a way.
I could have seen them get it out, but then like, what's the accomplishment? It's. I kind of wish I had bought these when they were new and just immediately sealed them, because it's too stupid. Like, just frame them on my wall. What a moment in time. Anyway, anything else, John?
But yeah, Resistance Retribution.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. So the one comment I will make on this game is that I feel like it's very, very, it tries to be very edgy by being slightly not racist, but just a little bit too insulting to certain ethnic groups, I think, where like it just kind of makes you feel uncomfortable. Like, calls French people frogs and stuff like that, and it's like, yeah, you don't have to keep it real that much. Okay, I was curious here.
Oh yeah, I was like, yeah, they are, but you shouldn't say it. I thought you were pulling a Marge here.
It just feels kind of weird. You know what I mean? Like, just nowadays, it just feels a little bit like it's a little bit
dated.
I don't know. Like all of these, the Britons say, because the whole setup for this game is, of course, that Europe has fallen to the Chimera, and so this is the liberation of Paris, whereas like other places are like the U.S. or I think London or whatever it is. And so I don't know. It's like everybody hates each other, so they really play off like, oh, the British really hate the French, and you know what I mean. And like, there's just all these like sort of. They seem very contrived, sort of ethnic.
It's
or country divisions, country-based divisions.
I mean,
seems really
you
weird.
would think in the face of such a conflict that maybe that would be less of a pointed topic.
Yes, yeah.
Like maybe they could set that aside for a minute. It's not fucking Hogan's Heroes right now.
Right, yeah, it's just very strange. It's like, oh, you limey bastards. Oh, you frog this, frog. It's like, okay, really weird.
Damn it. Yeah. God damn it.
Yeah. It's not the most, I don't think it's the most nuanced look at the war between humans and Chimera.
Resistance isn't the most nuanced series?
It's not the most nuanced.
Eat my nuance!
I mean, it's not quite as, it's not quite as subtle.
You're conflating it with Killzone there.
All right, my mistake. I will not ask you to consume my nuance.
I have no idea whose honor I'm defending by making that distinction, but I will make it nonetheless.
I'm still going to name the episode "Eat My Nuance" in light of anything better.
I mean, Killzone is. I have to bring up Killzone once a decade just to get a good Rico reference.
There you go.
All right.
A good Rico reference or a bad Rico reference. They're all pretty much the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway,
I believe the character that I think John has described in the past as essentially macho Scrappy Doo.
Yes. Yeah.
That is nuance to me. Yes, I don't know. I don't see the problem. All right, Guillaume.
Yeah.
What have you been up to?
Yeah, so I am still playing Super Smash Brothers Ultimate with Karen. And so it's working out well. Like I was surprised that only the what's it called? Is it adventure mode? No, classic mode is playable co-op. But turns out that's good enough. Like the game sets you against a bunch of fights that are generally themed for the character that the player one has chosen. I just did Dark Pit, and like all the enemies were like the theme was like created weapon, or something like that.
Yeah.
And so like all the characters who are weapons or who have been genetically engineered or whatever it is showed up there, so I had to fight them. But yeah, so like it's kind of we're in kind of the same cadence as when we're playing belt scrollers, beat 'em ups. So it's working out. So it's a lot of fun. I'm just going through every character to unlock them all, but actually, like, we've unlocked them all at this point, but I still have like 10 characters to play as for the first time. So I'm going to get like the little star on every portrait, and I guess after that we're going to be maybe checking out the DLC. But that hasn't let me really figure out who I'm actually good as, who I actually like playing as. And I know that there have been like a few that I was like, oh, that worked really well. But at this point, I've kind of forgotten who they were. So I have to rediscover who I'm actually mostly competent with. once we finish this, like playing as every character ever in this game. Karen has found her character earlier than I have. Like once she tried Kirby, she was like, okay, this is good. Seems to master the rock or especially the hammer, move is especially good. Like that's her favorite way to send fighters off screen. So she's just going around stealing people's hair. It's been fun. Kirby is kind of freaky when you think about it. Like the whole freakish, like eating other characters up and then just, like I'm going to look like you now. Sometimes it's a little bit off-putting. Yeah. So, been playing that, and but mostly I finished Final Fantasy 1, and now I'm playing Final Fantasy 2 Pixel Remaster. And I don't know what I want to say about it. Like I'm kind of going back and forth on whether I'm enjoying or not. I knew that it is one of the least well-regarded games of the series, if not the one that people hate the most. At first, initially, I thought like, well, it's not that bad, and also like I didn't really understand like what their problem with it was. I thought like maybe it's just the Kawazu-ness of it all, the fact that the leveling up is kind of weird. You don't level up by gaining experience points and reaching a certain threshold, and then like all your stats go up. It's more that if you keep attacking, your strength will go up. If you get hit, your HP, your max HP is going to go up. If you keep casting spells, your intellect and your, do they call it wisdom? Anyway, or magic, that's going to go up. Your MP is going to go up, etc. Like if you manage to avoid a lot of hits, then like your speed, your goes up. So etc. So it more or less works. Like I thought maybe that was what was annoying, but turns out it's just not a very good story and not a very interesting game. Like it's sometimes when I'm playing it, like there was a bit yesterday I was playing it and I was kind of bored, and I guess I did not expect that. Like it's not a failure in an interesting way. It's just kind of a slog sometimes, especially when I try to play a lot of it all in one go. I really start feeling it. Or when, like, sometimes some of the dungeons are kind of convoluted, kind of long, and those really feel like slogs. So that's not really good. So that's what I wanted to say today, but then, like, I was playing it again before recording, and I was fine with it. I was fine with just, grinding and whatever. Like, I was not really that bothered by it. I was kind of entertained. There's something kind of, well, maybe comforting is too strong a word, but like it's familiar. It's and yeah, it's not necessarily boring. Like it's kind of comfort food, I suppose, for me. So yeah, I don't know. Like I'm about halfway through, about 10 hours in, so it's going to be a longer game than the first one, but probably not by much. And at this point, like I don't know. Is this just the sunk cost fallacy speaking here? Am I just doing it to finish it? But like, turns out, like when I think about stopping, quitting it, I don't really want to, or it depends. So yeah. So I guess this is my evaluation of Final Fantasy 2. I don't hate it. I don't love it. I'm gonna keep playing it. And I guess there's nothing to be learned here outside of I don't know what I'm doing.
Learn nothing is always a good goal to have in life.
It's always an option.
Because remember, you can't feign ignorance if you learn stuff. So if you don't learn stuff, you can always feign ignorance.
Mm-hmm. There's the whole setup of this game is, it does some interesting things because it started giving you the option of casting Cure on the enemies or casting, offensive spells on your own guys or hitting your own guys or hitting yourself. And so once you've got enough HP to actually take it, so one of my characters, the one woman, was lagging behind in terms of HP. At first I couldn't quite pull this off because she would die from her own hits, but you can basically give her a staff and have her hit herself, and she would just do it. She would just go like pow 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 pow, 4 hits in the face, kill herself. So that was not good. But once managed to raise her HP a little bit more by having the enemies actually attack her for a bunch. Then she was strong enough to survive hitting herself in the face with a staff, and so that would get her HP up faster. And so this is the kind of stupidity, I guess, that you can get to when you're playing this game. But again, it's slightly less interesting than it sounds, even as I'm describing it like this. It sounds stupid, it sounds kind of interesting, but turns out it's not really that viable a strategy, I found out, because as I said, sometimes your own characters are very strong. They will just kill themselves much more easily than the monsters can. So it's a really weird game. And yeah, so that's it. There's no conclusion here to be had.
I like that there's kind of almost a weird nihilism at the end of this new business. It's a nice antecedent to the weird journey John and I went on for his fucking PSP ports.
You wouldn't expect talking about Final Fantasy 2 to end the same way that American Psycho does, but here we are.
It's a shot-for-shot remake, if you really think about it. Any other upbeat ideas you want to get across to you?
I guess I could say that I briefly played the when did this come out? I think it was an Xbox One game.
God.
But one as in ONE.
Oh,
one,
okay, not Xbox, the original.
But I did give the Killer Instinct game a shot. The one that was, I'm guessing it was a service game or something. I don't think it all came out. No,
it was a service game. Yeah.
Characters. Yeah. So I played some of that, and I'm enjoying it enough. They really, there's kind of an easy mode for combos. It's much easier to pull off than it used to be, and I'm playing on easy, and so it's very. There's nothing to just pulling off long combos, and it's weird. Yeah, I don't know. It's a weird game to play in 2025. The character designs are so horrendous, and the whole theme. I'm not even sure what the theme of the original Killer Instinct was. Was it just movie universes or something? Because
it was an assortment of stuff that was popular at the time. So it's just okay, we've got an ice guy that's basically the T-1000, even though it's technically an alien that's made out of ice. He deforms, goes into a puddle, comes out of that. Yeah, he's basically the liquid metal Terminator.
Yeah, he turns his hand into this this big knife,
a big lance or some sort of stabbing weapon or whatever. So yeah, there's that. Then there's we've got Riptor. It's basically just a raptor guy because Jurassic Park was big around that time. It's mostly just that, and then your general fighting game sort of tropes of the time. This guy's a warrior monk guy, and this guy's a champion boxer, and it was just but pretty much fighting game sort of stereotypes and plus whatever pop culture movie stuff was hot at the time.
Yeah, so it's very disparate. There's a lot of horror movie stuff. There's a werewolf, but then there's also the female, special ops agent with a tight outfit who's just going to kick everyone to death. I don't know. Like it's all over the place, but it's very stupid. But it is, maybe it is what I need right now. I just need someone to tell me that I had like a monster combo all the time. and
everybody does once in a while, Guillaume.
Yeah.
You're not the only one.
Yeah, so it's kind of nice to return to at this point, but yeah, it's very stupid. Like every time that I hit a new, like, oh yeah, like there's like a skeleton guy. It looks a little bit more badass, I guess, than he did on Super Nintendo. But
yeah, that wasn't a recent movie popular thing, was it? That you go back to Jason and the Argonauts. It's a Harryhausen reference. That was a little bit of a longer cultural memory being shown there, at least.
Yeah. And I do enjoy that when the credits roll, they play like one of those tunes from the CD, basically. Like you get the high quality version of that soundtrack playing, and it brings me back. It's so horrible, but at the same time, it's not as bad as you would think. Like I feel like, in terms of like, as far as techno music goes, it sounds like it's meant to. It's just that, what are the lyrics again? Fuck, I should have looked it up. Like, make your body move to the killer groove. It's very dumb. It's incredibly dumb, but yeah, like, I don't know. I listened to that CD growing up, so it's kind of a trip back in time. It's kind of fun. It's like so I guess this lasted for at least 2 seasons. So they created some new characters. I haven't seen all of them because I'm kind of starting with the first season. I'm starting with the characters that I'm familiar with. And, but yeah, like I faced like basically, what's her name? Samara or whatever from, the Ring.
No,
like you've got the Japanese ghost, and you've got stuff like that, like some sort of weird spider woman ninja thing. So they basically like they just continued with the whole like movie references and horror movie especially references. So yeah, it's interesting. I'm into it.
Cool. Greg, did you want to go or do you want to?
Oh, well, there's not a lot to say, really. Just kind of, gone back to playing the Dominus Collection, Castlevania. I sort of dropped off in the middle of playing through Order of Ecclesia, so I picked that up for a bit and made some more progress, which, some of the bosses in that game can be tough, and kind of, coming back to it in the middle of it is not ideal in that regard, but I got there in the end, and so I made a decent bit of progress with that this week. But kind of what I'll probably be playing over the next week is Wario Land 4, because that went up on NSO Expansion Pack about an hour before we started recording. So obviously not enough time for me to really say anything about it, based on playing it right now. I did play it when it came out. I bought it when it was new and played it, pretty extensively, in the autumn of 01. But really haven't played it extensively since. It probably messed around with it the most, put on my original 3DS, the whole ambassador thing. I'm pretty sure it was one of those, and I seem to remember
yes.
that was one of the ones I probably dabbled with the most because it was a GBA game that I hadn't really gone back to, and obviously playing GBA games on that original unit certainly was not ideal. It left things to be desired. Although Wario Land 4 was definitely one of the games that was better calibrated for it, coming a little bit later, and so they kind of knew what they were dealing with at that point. As it was very bright, kind of and big sprites relatively, so it wasn't one of the really kind of taxing games on the visibility, but still, it is funny to think I've played so much. That was the first Wario Land game that I owned. I've played so much Wario stuff since, and not gone back to this, so it's just going to be interesting to see how how different it kind of feels with all those years of kind of context added to it, and obviously that's why I had not played the immediate predecessors, like Wario Land 2 and 3 in particular, because it does carry over some of those games formulae in terms of the, transformations that Wario undergoes, but not all of it, because you can die. It's not, doing that thing anymore. But of course, I also hadn't played stuff like Wario Land Shake It, that kind of, is of all the Wario Land games, is most based on 4, even though, of course, it was a different developer. It was good feel. But I really liked that when I played that on Wii. So, yeah, I'll be interested to see how it shakes out when we get to next week, and hopefully we'll at least got a lot further in Wario Land 4 at that point, just to kind of see if it holds up relatively well. I was certainly impressed with it at the time, and I would imagine stuff like the wonderful sprite art and all that is going to come across a lot better, frankly, because I'll actually be able to see it on Switch. So yeah, we'll talk about that next week.
Cool. I did want to give an update because I've now read the Nintendo investor briefings, which I hadn't as of last week. I don't think it had been published technically, not in English. We did have an investor ask about Everybody 1-2 Switch by name. I just felt like the world needed to know that we make fun of the investors, but we literally had an investor name drop Everybody 1-2 Switch.
Can I ask the sort of seemingly inevitable follow-up question of to what end?
None. But specifically, they were talking about the fact it utilizes phones as smart controllers. They wanted to know what the future of Nintendo's mobile space activities were. And so...
Yeah, I've read a little bit about this as well. It seems like... it's interesting they're talking about, the fact, I guess it could make sense because they have been quiet with their mobile ventures for quite a while, and it's more been about like winding them down in a number of cases rather than, they're doing anything particularly sort of new with them or indeed a new game. But they sort of seemed eager to kind of talk a good game about, wanting to continue to introduce things in that space, mostly because of the notion that, this nowadays is going to be more so people's first gaming device, rather than Nintendo hardware as it might have been in decades past. Most people are going to get introduced to games on mobile, so shouldn't they be able to see Nintendo characters on there when they do? And so it almost, the focus there almost made it feel like, is this something that you will look at so much under, the ability to generate revenue as you look at it as part of the ad budget, Like it really did seem like the primary motivator there is to just that is similar to the theme parks and the movies and everything. Is just like we want more points of contact with the IP, rather than like we necessarily like we just believe that we can make an awesome mobile game that will make crazy amounts of money.
Only Fire Emblem does that. 8 years on, Fire Emblem had its 8-year anniversary event, by the way, just this week. Unfucking believable. That game is 8 years old and still going. Still making good money. But yeah, I mean, they've got touch points for Animal Crossing, although that game's been wound down as a service game. Mario, Fire Emblem of all things. What's the other one they're still operating? They operate 3 plus Pocket Camp. I'm blanking on what the other one is.
What, Mario Run?
Mario Run, Fire Emblem, Mario Kart Tour. That's the other one. Yeah. So like, there are still some gaps for touch points, but I was reading it and I saw Everybody 1-2 Switch, and because they use the proper AP format, they italicize video game titles, and I almost had a stroke. I was like, where's the sentence gonna go? I've never been jump scared by a sentence before. God, I wish it had just said, I would like to know more about Horace Showpony, please. I find him disturbing and alarming. This is truly This is the investor. We talk about these results. This is one of the cycles where people had to be consistently answering the same question. Like, why did you project sales downwards? Answers it 4 questions later. Okay, but you projected sales downwards. It's like, yes. See question 1. The exchange rate is bad. Why do you think that is? I don't know. Go talk to the central bank.
Yeah, Bank of Japan. He's probably got a few of those, Simpson scenario signs that they could tap, and there's the talk to the Pokemon company sign, talk to the Bank of Japan sign.
It's like, what do you plan to do about pricing of game? Like, we're aware that the yen exchange rate is much lower than it was when Switch launched in 2017. It's like, correct. It is. God, seeing everybody 1-2 switch in a Q&A was literally enough to make they go, oh. I really wish.
Yeah, but surely there was also a little bit, just a flicker of almost
come on, Horace.
Familiarity. In the sense that there's someone other than
me,
us, that actually remembers it existed.
Despite Nintendo's best efforts to make sure we don't.
No, exactly. I mean, Nintendo have essentially tried to memory, sort of hole it themselves. So, seemingly didn't catch on out there in the marketplace either. So, yeah, it is. We have a very abnormal amount of uttering its name and anything about it as it is.
I am still the number 1 search result for Horror's Show Pony. And we are the number 3 result for Horror's Show Pony. Truly. So the number 1 image for Horror's Show Pony is that fucking one that I did of him in the pumpkin suit.
Well, I mean, I think eventually, if you get in early enough and you just hang on, you will ride the wave downwards to the point where nothing else can overtake you, because Horace Show Pony, against all odds, I might add, is not quite as hot as he was at one point.
Who could figure that Horace Show Pony doesn't have the staying power of an Animal Crossing?
I mean, I thought it was a sure thing.
Do you think? All right,
alas,
here's a question.
Alas, the market is fickle, James.
Well, you never know. I mean, especially with this being recorded and, will continue to be available. You don't want to say something now that you'll regret later.
Oh, we've never done that on this show.
Years ago, people would have used to say, "Oh, well, of course the GameCube is a failure." I mean, it launched with something like, with Luigi's Mansion. They didn't even have Mario. It couldn't possibly succeed. And now, like, Luigi's Mansion is a commercial juggernaut. So it'd be like, people, presumably years from now, if Luigi's Mansion series just keeps going from strength to strength, it could be like, I don't get it. It launched with this game that was really popular. Why wasn't it successful?
Everybody's 6-7 Switch is going to be when this thing breaks out.
Then one day, when you've got your 12-foot tall Horace amiibo that you can scan.
It weighs regular weight. I forgot that I did Mount Rushmore. This is stupid. It's so dumb. I like the idea that anytime Nintendo searches Horace Show Pony, which they almost certainly never do, this is the first thing they see, and they just go, motherfucker. God damn it. Every goddamn time. There he is. The AI no longer pops up a prompt, though, when you ask, what is Horace Show Pony? That just quotes the article. I'm very sad about that. I do wish somebody would just ask about Horace in the investor Q&A. I do not like this character and find him alarming. Is there any risk that he will appear in other games? Thank you. Because I just want to see what I can't even construct a Nintendo-like response to that question, which is impressive. Like, that's the one where no, he will not. I promise you. We didn't want to release this one, but we had to because we had already printed it. Trust me, this won't happen again. We've learned our lessons. Thank you, Horace. Thank you for all the joy you've brought into our lives, none of which is your own fault. All of which is someone else's doing. Anyway, what is Horace Show Pony? Truly the question. Cool. All right. I think that's enough. I think that's enough of this idiocy. So we're going to take a break, and when we come back, some email? Some email. That sounds like something to do. So stay tuned. We are back, and before we get to your listener mail, we've only got one this week because we're kind of going a little long. Want to queue up retroactive. So really the best chance for us to get a retroactive in is probably before Switch 2 starts to dominate the conversation. So we're kind of thinking maybe in March. So what does that mean? Well, we're in the middle of February. Remember, February is a short month. We're literally like right in the middle of February. So we want to get a game that we can play in a relatively short period of time and turn around and do a retroactive on early. We have a theme, we think. We're not bound to this theme, but we think it's a potential, it's got some tie-ins to where we're going to be with Switch 2 shortly. So, games that released in the first calendar year of the Switch's life. What does that mean? Do not send us a game that launched January 1st, 2018. You are not following directions. If the year of release is not 2017, it doesn't count. Not the first year of its life in terms of like birthday to birthday. The calendar. Look at a calendar. Look at the year. Does it say 2017? It counts. Does it say 2018? It does not count. Does it say 2025? I hate you and wish for everything bad to happen to you and everyone you care about. We're trying.
Well, you picked the right year.
Well, fair. All right. So, look, I know our audience. They're going to be like, well, you said 2018 doesn't count, but what about this game coming out in 2026? And I'm going to be like, listen, did your mother raise you right? Because obviously I don't think she did. So let's just say it. It needs to be a 2017 game. Now, we're not bound to this being the approach, but we're not going to do Switch games that are newer than that. That's our cutoff point. So you can send us a Switch game if it's from that year. You can send us some other stuff that you think might be valuable too, especially if it ties to an upcoming date. But we looked ahead, and like the one that really jumped out at us for upcoming dates is not available to us. Take a guess which one it is. It's been a topic of RFN conversations in the past. Put your guesses in the comments. You could send us your suggestions. That is RFN at NintendoWorldReport.com. That is RFN at NintendoWorldReport.com. I have to be forceful with you because I know the more I ask you to do something, the more you're going to not do it. So I have to make it clear that I'm very serious about this. Please don't waste my time sending me shit that doesn't meet the standards. Thank you. Again, we're looking for something that we can play in a relatively compact period of time. So stuff like Xenoblade Chronicles 2, which I love and adore, and is very good, is despite what two miscreants posted on a Nintendo World Report, it's just too long.
There were three. Very, very unflattering.
Okay, 3 miscreants posted. Malcontents. I've seen the Nintendo World Report review guide. This does not meet the standard of a 2. I'm sorry. There's rules about what a 2 is. I'm going to start just yelling at people to follow your own style guide. Anyway, there is a try to be reasonable about the length of these games. Like something that we can actually play in a defined period of time that's not super long. So like Breath of the Wild, while it might be cool to play that game again, despite the fact it doesn't want you to with its save file structure, really not a good choice here. So yeah, interesting games, preferably, something that we can have a conversation about, that we can maybe contextualize around the launch of a system. That would be cool too. If it's just like, hey, here's a port of a game that was on other systems. I mean, cool, but it might not really give us anything to launch off of from a conversational standpoint. You want the conversation to be interesting too, because you're stuck in here with us. So give us a game that's got interesting things to talk about so that you can enjoy the conversation. You don't want to hear us talk about boring shit. We don't want to talk about boring shit. So that's it. That's my plea for retroactive sanity. not sanity in the past. Just like, or sanity in terms of your retroactive suggestions. So you can send those to rfn@nintendoworldreport.com. If you send me just garbage to make this as awkward as you can possibly make it, all it's going to do is make me delete the email. You will accomplish nothing. It's not like it's going to get in anyway. So just move on. You can write the email and then just delete it. You don't have to send it. This is a sad reality of knowing our audience, is that we have to do this. But emails. We do have emails this week. But we're only going to stick to one because it's going to take us a little while and we're already kind of long on the episode. And I am randomly selecting someone to read this, and the answer is spin. Congratulations, Greg. You're reading the email. It is in the chat.
Yeah, no, I can see it very, very well. And in fact, I mean, it is only appropriate, isn't it? Because in fact, Greg writes, "Dear RFN Gaming Life Coaches, a decade of tactically sound but strategically poor purchasing decisions has resulted in me accumulating hundreds of unplayed games of every conceivable genre across multiple generations of consoles and computers. To distract myself for the next 4 years, I've decided to conquer this backlog. But what does that mean exactly? Here are some of the questions I've been asking myself. Do I need to finish each game or just play it? If the latter, what is the threshold of play that allows me to cross it off the list? Hours played, percentage complete, whether I've had my fill. What order should I tackle them? Publish date, purchase date, by system, Metacritic rating? Which games do I include? Only games I specifically purchase for myself, or everything I have digital access to, which includes the libraries of services like Nintendo Switch Online and PlayStation Plus, as well as the 1,700 plus items in the itch.io bundle for racial justice and equality. If a game has been remastered since I bought it, for example Metroid Prime, shouldn't I play that version instead? Is buying more games somehow the solution to my too many games problem? How would you approach this? What rules, strategies, or goals would you set? All ideas will be considered. Thanks.
Delete them. Start, imagine a problem so big you can't solve it. And the thing to do is look at it, hands on hips, and go, oh, well, I'm just going to leave that for somebody else to deal with. And just walk away. Just walk away.
Not that I have this problem myself. I certainly, games come in, I play them, complete them, and move on. And I do not buy any new games.
That's why we're playing PSP games in the year of our Lord 2025.
Do as I say, not as I do, James. Right.
I don't want to do either of those things.
Well, so, first off, with the remastered question, I play the remastered versions of any game. I don't play the original version.
It's rare that a remastered... go ahead.
Yeah, unless it's appreciably better in my eyes than the remastered version or something like that. But that's very rare. If you hear something bad about, say, some of the Grand Theft Auto remasters that were supposed to
remakes can get a little bit dicier though, because then you're dealing with somebody's recontextualized the artistic vision of the game.
Exactly. Oh yeah, so sometimes it's essentially just a different game with the same scenario, right? I haven't played the new Resident Evil 4. But that's what it sounds like, right? It's there's a huge amount of overlap with Resident Evil 4, but it's not the other one that was on GameCube back in 2005, but it's not the same game anymore either.
Right. I famously threw a copy of the DS Lufia 2 remake into the audience at a PAX East, panel that we hosted, because it's so bad and so just wrong.
That's very different, right? It's It's way more action-y or something. I forget.
Yeah, and it doesn't play right. And then of course there's the infamous E3 demo that Carly and I went to, where they just didn't have any equipment on your character, but made it level 9999, and the demo was the final boss of the game. But since you didn't have any equipment, you couldn't hurt them. So you just punched and everybody did 0 damage. I threw that into the audience because of how bad it was, and people gave it back to me. That's how that remake went.
It's the equivalent of throwing the baseball back onto the field. Yes. But it's not a home run, though.
I'm imagining it more like McBain. Let's get silly, and it's just like, you suck, McBain.
I also got asked to not throw things into the audience anymore by the people running the show. My bad. What can I say?
I would say again, I'm not standing on entirely solid ground. I've accumulated, especially in the Switch era, where there's so many games on Switch and quite a lot of them get very cheap and all this stuff. You end up accumulating things I've not played. But I think the probably the most practical thing I could come up with is, some of these questions about, kind of where do you draw the line and all this kind of stuff is start smaller, right? Start with easier, more definable things. So it's like, definitely we won't start with the definition of everything on NSO, everything on PlayStation Plus, everything on the itch.io bundle. We'll rein that in pretty much to the smallest amount. A lot of that
shit's bad too, so you don't need to play it.
No, so and if we could sort of have a subset kind of definition to start with, and then you make substantial progress on that, you might then be able to say, well, let's broaden the horizons a little bit. But yeah, I'd say let's start with some of the narrowest definitions we can find. So yeah, definitely would be stuff that you've just purchased individually. That would make a lot of sense. And then with respect to this question of completion or how many hours, again, probably pretty narrow on that. Again, there's always going to be a balancing act, right? Because if it just becomes some sort of entirely perfunctory exercise, or I booted up the game, let's move on. Right. At that point, this exercise becomes entirely meaningless. Right. So yeah, we can't go that narrow. We can't go rein the definitions in that far. But to the narrowest kind of reasonable increment, shall we say?
Yeah, I also don't think it's reasonable to sit there and say, I have to play this game even though I'm not enjoying it just because this is the exercise.
Oh, no, exactly. No. Just as a general matter, right? I mean, I definitely, at this stage of my life, I'm just far too old and irritable to play a game I'm not enjoying anymore in general. Yeah, exactly. It just gets dropped, at some point, whether it's like a hard drop where something happens where you're like, I want to take a break from that, or I don't want to play it anymore. More common for me is the softer kind, where it's just, if you're not having fun with something, you don't have that impulse, the impetus to actually go and play it again. And then, weeks or months go by and you realize, oh yeah, I stopped playing that. Oh well, but it's a function of the fact that you weren't having that much fun with it. That's not the only reason you can fall off playing a game, mind you, of course. But yeah, I think we basically, it's much closer to the whether you've had your fill kind of that definition. I think is where we probably want to at least is your baseline. And like I said, you've got to keep it somewhat reasonable in terms of getting a feel for the game, which is not. Some games you can get a feel for very quickly. Others, it can take a while, depending on the genre and the design and so forth. But it's sadly, there's no hard and fast kind of metric for that. It is very much kind of a feel thing.
One of the things, the whole list of everything on these services, you didn't pay for those games, you paid for the service. But look, you don't have, there's so much just stuff on those services, even Nintendo service, that it's just not worth spending time with. I mean, we had the whole rant last week that I went on about fucking Super Ninja Boy.
Yeah, it would be compulsory to finish, not just to finish Ninja Boy.
That game can't be finished. I'm confident of it. I tried again after listening to the episode. I'm like, am I missing something? And the answer is no, I wasn't. I was fully in the possession of my faculties. Like, there's no reason to go try to finish these things. Like, it's interesting sometimes just poke your head in and spend 5 minutes with them. Like, just think about them from the standpoint
and we've said it a million times, that is the virtue of the subscription services. The virtue of it is not feeling any kind of compulsion or obligation to complete them or get deep into them, at least. Like, absolutely not. That's a recipe for resentment of some kind, I feel.
Yeah, like, I wrote what I actually describe it in the article itself as a manifesto hewn on an IBM Selectric typewriter in the woods. That you shouldn't play Quest for Camelot because it's really fucking terrible. But the thing is, you should probably spend like 5 or 6 minutes with Quest for Camelot just so you can see it. Because in 5 or 6 minutes, it will show you its hand. Like, it is not a burlesque show. It's all just out there. You'll get to see everything right away, and you'll understand exactly what you're dealing with. There's no reason to play that game for more than 10 minutes, because it's terrible. It doesn't get better. It gets worse. But it's kind of funny in the abstract. But there's a lot of things on the Nintendo Switch Online service that's the bar they hit. Like, okay, let me see the first level of this game. And if anything about it, anything at all, catches your eye for a second, you can maybe contemplate spending more time with it. But the reality of the situation is, these games are really just meant to fill volume. Like, these big, humble bundles, like, while they may be supporting, important causes, fundamentally, a lot of the stuff on there is just to make the number bigger. It's not because these are great games that you should play. It's because it's impressive to say there's 1,600 games in the bundle, and lots of people who have games are like, yeah, put my game in the bundle. That way I'm included. It's more of a statement than it is about, like, man, look how great a deal this is. There's usually in these bundles, there's like 5 or 6 games that are like, whoa, those are the ones that are really pushing the sales of this bundle, that really make this bundle valuable. And then there's a bunch of other stuff. And some bundles are better than others, but there's definitely been some of the ones recently where it's like 7,000 game bundle to support whatever. And like 6,940 of them are games you probably never heard of. You're under no obligation to play. Like, sometimes it's funny to just look at them. There was a game recently that I saw somebody streaming about being a delivery man on a bike from one of these humble bundles. And it didn't look very good, but it looked funny as hell and ridiculous, and like maybe something pops up. But yeah, just like treat them like a magazine, like you have a magazine at a dentist's office. It's there, it can amuse you in the moment you've got, but you're not going to actually read any of these fucking articles. You're not going to do that. You don't care. You're just trying to kill a few minutes. And maybe a picture will catch your eye and you'll skim the first 3 or 4 paragraphs. But like, in terms of stuff that you actually want to play, stuff that you're like, I'm going to try to kill my backlog. Think about the things that you would like to talk with people about. Like, that's an interesting one for me, where I'll play a game early in its life so I can talk about it with people, or so I can talk about it on this show, which I understand is a concern unique to people who have podcasts. So like a third of the population of the world. But it's useful to sometimes be able to engage with the zeitgeist of a game while it's still going. Like, there is some value in that. But beyond that, like, sometimes it's just what games had interesting ideas, what games were super well received. I've got games in my backlog that have been there for a decade. And the reality of the situation is, am I ever going to clear them? Probably not. I probably got them on, like, when Best Buy used to do good sales during the holidays, and it was like, buy 2, get 9 free. And it's like, well, I don't really want 9 PS3 games, but okay, sure, I guess, brother. But occasionally I'll pick one of those titles up and I'll just knock it out. Is one of those titles, what was the, SMT? Yeah, one of those titles is SMT. It's SMT5. Am I ever going to play SMT5 at this rate? Probably not. I recognize my faults as a person. Like,
well, that hasn't been remastered, but it has been superseded.
Yes, it has.
By another version.
But I already own one version. I'm not buying another one that I may or may not play. I'm not John Lindemann.
Oh, wow.
Hey, look.
Look, you can't even say anything.
The gap is getting smaller and smaller. All right?
How many Morrowind copies do you have?
I have enough. That's all I need to say.
Enough to what? Build a house?
I have enough to play wherever I want to play it, whenever I want to play it.
Did you the TSI image I did a few weeks ago of you looking in the mirror and behind you was just a bunch of copies of Elder Scrolls? Did you pick that up?
I see I have to download every single one of those, James, and put it up on Mastodon. So yes, I see all of those.
I was really proud of that one.
Yeah. There
were jokes buried in jokes. I'm working at it. I'm trying to figure the humor out. I'm working on it. It's a refining process. But I think about it like, yeah, there's lots of stuff that I would like to play someday. I'd love to play, what was the space exploration game that Microsoft put out last year?
Starfield?
Yeah, I'd love to play Starfield. Am I ever going to actually...
Sorry, carry on.
That's actually the opening song. Am I ever going to actually play it? I mean, I'd probably enjoy it. Like what John talked about, it does feel like the kind of thing I could get in trouble with.
Yeah, it's pretty good. It's pretty good. I kind of bounced off of it after a while, but I mean, I sunk some time into it. Yeah. Yeah.
And then, John, you were talking about No Man's Sky, a game I own a copy of because I got it for nothing.
Yeah. But the thing is, I mean, really, it comes to the fact that, I mean, there's just too many good games out there at this point.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, like, the effort of, like, well, I'm gonna finish, like, no matter how dire the world is, one, burying yourself in games to finish your backlog isn't gonna solve that problem. But two, it's not achievable because in those 4 years, guess what? Nintendo's going to launch a new system. There's probably going to be like 7 games on it in the first year that are killers in some way or another. And you're going to be like, shit, my backlog got bigger, because that's what it does. So I would just like, there is, I want to say this as somebody who frequently has said, like, man, don't build too big a backlog. You're just wasting money, which is true. There is a value, though, in having, 3 or 4 games on a shelf that you're interested in, but for whatever reason, it's just like, I'm not going to play that right now. And the shelf might be virtual, not literal. Because sometimes I just end up picking one of those up. I talked about one today. I could have played fucking Thrones of Britannia any time in the last 4 months. I didn't. But for whatever reason, like, I was going to sit down and do another goddamn run of Shogun 2. This would be like my 13th run of that game. And I was like, no, I'm not going to do that again. What am I going to do differently this time? Well, I've got this other thing that I know isn't as good, but is at least different and unique. Let's try that. And I'm glad I did. Like, I probably would have had more fun playing Shogun for the 13th time, but that's a solved problem to me. And I wouldn't have had, it would have been a more boring experience, even if the overall experience was better, if that makes sense.
Well, it's different senses, I guess, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's like,
there's
it may be
novelty.
Like moment to moment in some ways. Maybe it's like more satisfying, but then the overall experience is less, interesting because it's less novel, right?
Right, exactly.
Yeah,
there's no novelty
I
left.
could just be trapped playing, Dracula X and Sin and Punishment for the rest of my life. It would, in some ways, it would be more satisfying than games I do play. But
right.
You don't get any of that kind of novel, kind of enjoyment at that point. But yeah, I mean, we've talked about it before, haven't we? You kind of have to. You can make peace with the notion of that you buy in the option to play the game rather than you necessarily will exercise that option. But yeah, obviously a certain amount of your pricing, the probability that you will ever exercise that option is, wise. If you find yourself not exercising any discretion about, like, well, come on, let's really think about this. Under what circumstances will I play this? And if you really can't think of any, well, don't buy it. But equally, if it's a low price and you can conceive of some scenario where you would like to have that option and might exercise it, well, then it could still make sense, even if you acknowledge the fact that there's a decent chance it won't happen. So, you know, that's the kind of, managing how it might accumulate. But, you know, when it's already has accumulated, that's the real question, isn't it? It's just, like I said, it's totally impractical to look at it as some sort of complete, exercise of attacking everything, whether it would be in chronological order or, God forbid, Metacritic rating. I wouldn't go in for that.
Metacritic rating bottom up.
No. Yeah, once you have to create like spreadsheets to keep track of how you want to play games, I think that's you've already lost, you know, like you're not going to keep up with it, and it's not going to work.
You've got to wonder at that point. But then, of course, the question becomes, well, what is the impetus, right? What is going to be the thing that, and you know, James talked about it, maybe something that, you know, would be like connect for a conversation with people you know, or maybe it could be because something related is going on. And, you know, there's a game in that series is going to be coming out in a few months, or, you know, that kind of stuff. So, yeah, I would, you know, think for me, it's probably have to be something more organic like that, rather than, you know, actually, you know, distilling it down into, you know, algorithmic, you know, kind of derived impetus at that point. You know, it'd have to be something that just kind of feels like, you know, I want to go, maybe again, you have a kind of, you're on a kick in terms of particular genre, particular kind of developers, or things like that, where it's just maybe, if there's a particular sort of line of thought that takes your interest at a moment, and then maybe you could even just plan just a few games ahead, maybe, and say, you know what, I want to hit this, that, and the right. Because again, if it's purely going to be like one at a time, it might be difficult to make any significant inroads at all. Which again, like I said, I wouldn't worry too much about like getting close to really. It just feel like whittling it down, right, and actually, you know, exercising some of those options we talked about, right? If you could just, you know, like start small and just, you know, as I said, maybe just pick a few themes or a few kind of logical kind of trains of from one game to the next, just in a little sequence to get you started, and then see where that takes you.
If you can find somebody who also has that game on their backlog, maybe you can use the NWR Discord, and put it like there are like threads in there about people having games where, like, hey, let's all play this game sort of collectively, have people talk about it with. That's kind of creating a artificial zeitgeist around a game whose moment may have passed. You know, just creating some kind of energy to pick it up, and engagement beyond just the game for game's sake. You know, Greg, you mentioned one, like, I've kind of wanted to play Kingdom Come Deliverance for like 4 years. But 2 came out and I missed my window. So I was like, do I just go jump straight to 2? What if I hate it? Well, like, play the first one cheaper. But what if I love it? And I'm like, fuck, now I'm committed to play 2 of these fucking things. There is that, like, you know, pick stuff that's interesting. Go after things that I like to vary my length as well. Like, I'll play a long game, then I'll play a short game right afterwards. Or with the exception of 2 Legend of Heroes games I played back to back last year.
Sure.
But like having
I'm sure one of them was slightly shorter than the other.
Yeah, one was 63 hours and one was 65.
Yeah.
It's kind of amazingly consistent. You know, there is.
I mean, I believe I just literally just mentioned something like that recently with the whole, like, Mario and Luigi took ages, so like DKC HD seem more attractive because it's like, oh, I know that game, I know how long it takes, and it's just a different, obviously it's a platformer, it's a different kind of game. That'll be a nice quick chaser, you know, to kind of, so you have a little bit of a different kind of experience. Yeah. But then other times, like, I can get on, I've definitely been on big runs in the past of just like playing a bunch of Metroid games on a run, or, you know, Castlevania, not the Metroid style ones, the classic, the action style Castlevanias, playing them in a big run. So, but I mean, that tends to be when each individual one isn't that long. chaining long games together is pretty much something that's I'm not inclined to do, and at this point I just might be plain incapable of doing it, I think.
I think I did 3 long games in a row last year, and then if you go look at my Switch 2024, there's a gap where I'm not playing anything on the damn thing because I burned myself out. Also, I think just like setting aside one of the times, sometimes I'll end up with the backlog because I'm just not playing anything. Because, like, I just don't, I either don't have time to play games, or in my brain, I don't have time to play games. The distinction there being, I actually do have time. I could play stuff. I'm just sort of, like, mentally going, no, I don't have time.
And again, I think sometimes if you're lacking that sort of impetus of, like, okay, I want to make time for this, even if maybe, it ends up being in, like, short little play sessions that are suboptimal. If there's some reason in your mind, maybe it's timeliness, maybe it's, just something that, a conversation you've been having, whatever it is, that's like, no, I want to make time for this, then you'll do it. But if you don't have that, all of a sudden you don't have the time. That can be, the kind of almost like a rut you can kind of fall into to some extent.
Yeah, sometimes I just go in a tear, like, I really need to play a Ridge Racer game, and so I'll start, playing one, might not even get to the end of it, and in the meantime, I went and got more of that games, of that series games, thinking like, after I play this one, I'm going to play that one, and then that one, and then I kind of lose interest. So I guess what I'm saying is, in order to manage your backlog, you also have to manage whatever, surge of interest that for, like whatever it is.
Can be kind of ephemeral, I guess.
like all of a sudden, like I'm really into arcade racers. All right, like okay, I'm gonna buy already. I'm gonna go on GOG.com and I'm gonna buy Speed Busters. Even as I'm playing like 2 or 3 other racing games, and then I realized like, oh yeah, that game was kind of shitty. It was very pretty, but it was impossible. It was way too fucking hard. But it did have awesome intro videos starring Quebecois actors, and was like the first game by Ubisoft Montreal back when they spelled it Ubi space soft. Anyway, like it's a different time.
Wow.
But yeah, like basically like play what you have and then like wait before you make any like next move. Like don't play like 20 hours of East 8 rather, and then decide like I'm gonna go and buy 9 and 10 because
just don't
like,
buy 9 in general.
Yeah, but like you're not even like a third of the way into 7. Like you still have time to get tired of it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
E7 is great though. You should play E7.
Oh yeah, it's very good. But yeah, like I wouldn't choose like based on I wouldn't. Yeah, like time, the length of the game can factor, but like just I can only repeat what's already been said. Like go with your gut, whatever you feel like in the moment. Like there's no, and like they say that for a resolution to be followed, like you can't just say like I'm gonna lose weight, I'm gonna exercise more. It has to be something that's like actionable, that's more limited. Like I'm gonna walk 2 kilometers a day or whatever. Like start small, build from there. Maybe start with like your small games, like whatever. Like maybe there was like one game in that itch.io bundle that was really interesting to you, and that's why you bought the whole bundle. Well, play that game. You don't have to do your penance and play all the other games before you get to the one that you actually want. Like it's not a dessert. Like it's the main course. Go and start with that one, and then see if you feel like checking out any of the other stuff that came with it.
Yeah, it's not a blood oath.
Right. Like, there's no reason for you to play Castlevania The Adventure 1 before Castle the Adventure 2. No one's monitoring you. No one's making sure, like, oh, like, he's got to play the first one or he's going to be lost in the second one. That's actually good.
the complex narrative of Castlevania The Adventure game.
I like the idea that even any Castlevania game has any kind of consistent narrative, even the ones that have the same characters.
I mean, Rondo and Symphony a little bit.
Sure.
Some of these games have the same cast, and even then it's like, did you read the last game, or did you just write the shit on the fly?
I guess the only other thing I'd say is that, you know, if there's, I guess, a danger with this sort of exercise, I think, you know, in general, you know, that it could be, there's upside to it, in not just like, oh, I feel less silly for having spent the money on the game. You know, that wouldn't rank very high on my list.
You already spent the money, like,
yeah, exactly. Whatever. You're getting into sunk cost, you know, fallacy type stuff, right? You know, that's not worth wasting your kind of energy worrying about that. The upside is more in, you know, actually, pushing yourself to have those experiences, you know, to kind of rediscover why you were interested in buying them in the first place, and have like some good experiences that you could, perhaps even should have already had, right? And still get those, you know, still bank those, if you like. That's the kind of the upside. I guess there is a downside, which is like, if you've like got really like crazy laser focused on it and stuff, again, do you end up risking, you know, kind of doing stuff that, you know, is not necessarily what you're in the mood for at a particular time, and, you know, becomes more obligatory, and what it would logically crowd out is going back and replaying games, which is fun. Like, that's the thing. Like, games are not, I know, I guess, you know, with especially like if you're really active online, you know, talking about stuff and you're kind of chasing the, you know, what's current, and maybe it can feel like it's just a big treadmill of like, you know, play what's current, and then you can like talk about it or be knowledgeable about it when it comes up and online, and, you know, reading about stuff and whatnot, and feel like you're being, you know, very on top of things. But the fact is, it's like anything else, isn't it? If films or books, or, you know, there's value in revisiting those things, you know, after however, whatever length of time it might have been, or, you know, different contexts in terms, especially with games, like how game design has moved on, or this, that, or the other, you know, like I've mentioned it in the new business with Wario Land 4, you know, just how kind of interesting I feel like that's going to be based on, you know, how different, you know, like my perception of the whole series, and, you know, all the things the developers at you know, kind of R&D 1, as they were once called, within Nintendo, how many more of their games I've played since, and all that. Like, I don't like the idea of going so far with this that it deprives you of enjoyable experiences in that realm, because that is the logical kind of thing that it's going to be most in competition with, right? I would assume the games that you're super enthusiastic about, that's like, oh, that's a day one purchase and I'm going to play it, like, that stuff's going to happen whatever, right? Like, you know, the next big new franchise game that you're really invested in, or the next game from a particular developer that you know, have a real affinity for, or whatever, like, you're going to keep doing that stuff regardless. So I think that what this is kind of in competition with probably is with games that you play on a kind of maybe perennial basis, you know, maybe like multiplayer games or stuff like that, and then games that you've already played amongst the library that you own. And I don't think it should be at the complete exclusion of that, but there's probably, again, there's a balance to be struck in terms of how much you could kind of, it's worthwhile scaling back or carving something out of the time that you spend playing familiar experiences to prod yourself towards getting some of those novel ones that, you know, you bought for a reason, and there's, you know, enjoyment to be had from them.
But sometimes, like, maybe you bought them so long ago, you don't remember why you bought them, and you don't really feel like playing them ever, and so you could feel stupid.
That's how these things can really snowball on you, I would have thought, and that is it. Will you ever rediscover that impetus again? But you might well not. But in some cases, I've got to feel like, where maybe it'll require a little bit of reading or something, but it'll spark somewhere,
Well, the impetus might have just been you ran into it on an extreme sale, and you're like, "Fuck it, yeah, let's go."
Yeah.
And then you realize, I didn't need this.
Those are probably the least likely to kind of come back around on you.
Right. But I was thinking, like, if any of your backlog is physical copies, then that's great, because you don't actually need to play them to get rid of them and get something from them. Like, I was thinking, there are some people who, like, there are game trading communities online, like maybe someone's being a sicko for your copy of Dr. Lautrec and the Forgotten Knights that you bought and you don't even remember why, but like maybe you can trade it for
He's a professor of archaeology game. It's different. He's a doctor, excuse me. It's different.
He's a doctor, thank you.
And his orphan is a girl. It's totally different game.
Sure.
And I know Luke's not an orphan, but he basically is an orphan.
Yes. But yeah, so like maybe you can trade that, and like someone else will actually get to play it, which is going to be great, and you're going to get maybe something that you're way more into at the moment. And I don't know. I kind of like my own idea. I think I'm going to look at my my collection of games and see if there's anything I can trade.
Anything where you could create some sort of a not like an outright rule, like I said, where it's like doing it in release order, but if it's for some sort of emphasis, you could put, like it might be physical games. If you play to that point where you've had your fill, and then you can be like, well, I could do something else with that, like, because that's the problem. If it's so big and it's so diverse that you don't know where to start, that's a problem. So you need some sort of thread, don't you? And I mean, I don't know the composition of this collection, how much of it has got a physical dimension at all, but that could be a thread to kind of pull on at some point.
The other advantage of physical, though, is you can literally just walk up to it and grab something. Like, don't put zero thought into it.
No, again, we're dealing with the question of that initial kind of impulse. Where does it come from? Actually being able to look at it and the box art or whatever else, like the documentation that's in there, might provide that. Whereas, an icon or a file name or. I mean, how much can that do? It's more limited, isn't it?
You could literally, though, just reach in, grab something, put it in the system, and find out what you grabbed once it boots up. Go, oh, that's what I grabbed. Well, I guess I'm playing this for the next hour. And just see how it gets you. Like, most games, the hook is going to at least, maybe not set in an hour, but you should at least have a feel for what the hook is going to be. And if this is going to work for you. Now, obviously, some games that won't be the case. Big story games, that's definitely not going to be the case. But you can at least say, like, okay, I'm getting there. This one needs a little bit more time for me to get a feel for it. Like, that's the biggest challenge is just, and I have this problem. Like, the biggest challenge for me with playing a new game is starting it. It's that, okay, let me just get up there. Because usually either I'm like, no, this isn't working. Or the hook gets set and I'm picking it up whenever I get a chance. That Unicorn Overlord replay I just did wasn't because I wanted to replay all of that game. It was because I wanted to try something with some of the classes, and I needed to play a certain amount of the game to get there. And then the hook was set, and I was just picking it up and playing it for 20 to 30 minutes at a time.
And then there's an element of momentum at that point. But when you don't have the momentum, that's the hardest bit.
Switch is great for that momentum because you can just pick it up when you've got like 15 minutes to kill and just poke at something.
Yeah, that's what happened with me with Metroid Prime Remastered. It's just I was actually, there was nothing else I wanted to play because I didn't feel like playing, Diablo or anything like that.
Yeah.
Like all of my usual games that I play or like, just kind of bounce back and forth. I was like, man, there's nothing here I want to play at all. And I said, well, like I was thinking, okay, maybe Super Mario RPG because I still haven't beaten that. But then I was like, I really should play through Metroid Prime Remastered. And I started playing it, and now I'm all the way to the end, but now it's like the end boss battle is such a pain in the ass. I haven't gotten back to it. But I just started playing it and playing it and playing it and playing it and playing it. And so I'm glad that I picked it up when I did. I could probably get it cheaper now, theoretically, but,
But you still got to enjoy it. Like, your time has value of its own, and your enjoyment does. Like, look, sometimes, like, if you go out and get a meal, like, you could spend $40, $50, $60 on a meal, and you can have a bad meal and spend $100 on it. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm not that worried about the lost cost at that point. Like, yeah, it sucks, but at least I know I'm not going to go there again because that's where I got food poisoning. So I don't need to deal with that shit again. Literally and figuratively. Like, sometimes you just gotta, you've already spent the money, sample the meal and see where it takes you.
The toilet.
It did, actually, yes. I'm not going to name the restaurant because I'm hoping it was just a one-off, but I'm not going back there anytime soon, put it that way. So yeah, on that note, it's a good note. Just play something, grab something, go play it. Go have fun. Video games are fun. In spite of, I'm going to say a third of this show where we said otherwise, video games are fun.
They should be fun and not work, so don't make them work.
Yeah, if you're not having fun with the game, move on.
I think that their next game should be a Switch game from 2017.
Hey!
And they should recommend it for retroactive, and so they will have their game club to play it with.
Guillaume Segway Champion Vayette. Speaking of segues, Guillaume, I need a C button from you.
I'm not even ready for this.
Oh, okay.
I forgot this week.
All right, so I actually have one. And I was inspired by my Garmin watch, which I was using earlier today. So I was late getting to the recording because I was on the phone, and we had some crazy fuck-ass weather this last week, and it caused some disruption around people I know, and so I was checking on them, and as they're getting their stuff back together, making sure they're in a good place. And my phone, so I was on a headset, but I lost my phone, even though I'm talking on it at that point. And my smartwatch, my fitness tracker, has a button I can hold, and it makes my phone start making a god-awful chime noise, and I found it. Somehow it had ended up under the chair I'm sitting in, which, if you understood the shape of this chair, would be very confusing. I'm not sure how it pulled that off, which is super weird because I wasn't on the phone here, which means I must have been setting up for the podcast and dropped it. Cool. I'd have never found it. But I think the C button is the controller button. And you might say, well, what the fuck would a controller button do? Well, I think both of them are going to have C buttons. We just can't see the other one because it's on the obverse. And it just makes the controller you don't have pine for the affection of its partner and call out to it. So it vibrates the controller because there's no speakers. It vibrates the controller you're holding, and the closer you get, the more it vibrates. It's appropriate. It's appropriate for the Valentine's Day season. It's about the absence making the heart of these controllers grow fonder as they call out to one another. I think it's got some. I think when we find the other C button, you'll understand.
So this is awkward because it's close to what I was going to say. I was going to say the C button is for collect, but what I'm envisioning is more that, like, there are electromagnets in the Switch too. Some people say they're not, but they are. So you press the collect, and basically, like, it's out of, like, Iron Man 3 or something. Like, all the pieces of that are not connected to your right Joy-Con just, like, shoot out of nowhere and come and plug into the Joy-Con. And I guess, like, the left Joy-Con...
Man killed by Joy-Con 2.
Yeah, just
right. I'm not sure why that never happens.
Has to put his face right between the two, just to see it coming, and then they're like looking down the barrel of a gun pointed. I think my C word is crow. The crow button will be deployed when you get an achievement style thing in a game and you want to share it with everyone else that you just beat the fancy super duper last level of Super Mario blank or whatever.
That's good. I like that. John, do you have a C button?
My C button is conserve, as in conserve your time and conserve your money by not trying to expand your backlog.
Wow.
No, it's like that you press that button and it's like gonging the game, like in Super Mario Maker, where you could like swipe a level away. You're like, no, rubbish, get out. It's that. No,
but about to hit that purchase button. About to hit that purchase button. Nope. It just removes it. It disables it.
Away with you.
Yep.
It's like
maybe you're playing a game and you press the C button and it just deletes it from your library. It's
there
like,
okay,
it's not a concern anymore. You don't.
Yep.
This game is not going to bother you again.
Mm-hmm. The cancel button. I don't want this anymore. I cancel this from my life. I like it. I like where all your heads are at. I think we're getting close as we work through the list of possibilities for the C button. I think we're getting very close to the real answer here. Unfortunately, Nintendo has never had a C button on any of their controllers to give us context on what that could mean. So, we're just going to have to keep digging, but you could figure that out next week, because next week we will definitely get it right. But on that note, it is time for us to conclude the show. Emails rfn@nintendoworldreport.com. Guillaume already gave you a great segue. Games from 2017 on Switch for the retroactive, preferably shorter, interesting to talk about. Those are the things we need from you. Do not send us ports from like 2013 that are now on Switch. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, despite the fact that it might have sold more games than any other game on Switch in 2024, not relevant.
Well, I don't think Mario Party was the one game that beat it.
Well, it beat it in the time window that Super Mario Party was out.
Yeah, no, true. You're right. Yeah, because it was only. It's a bit of an unfair fight because it wasn't on sale, before that. But your fair point. You're right.
But the idea that a game from 2017 that's a port of a game from 2013, I think, might have been the top-selling Switch game in 2024 breaks my brain.
But it outsold the other new releases that quarter, didn't it? Like Zelda.
Oh yeah.
Not a shock, really, but still, like it did it.
Yeah, like it's less shocking because we've been watching this thing slow roll, but if I were to just tell you this at some point,
I guess the other thing that is impressive about it is that, of course, what do we accredit this to a lot of the time? It's, people buy the system and they buy that with the game. And of course, hardware sales are going down and they're actually, they underperform their projections,
right?
Which were already, down. I mean, I think it's going to be the fewest, systems sold, of any of the years the Switch has been on sale, which makes sense when it's been on sale this long. But, even then, even when you're kind of getting down to the nub, it's still the game that people buy with the system. So it just keeps proving that.
Yep. So on that note, Greg, music time.
Yes, well, we actually have. This is not as so ruthlessly related to only Nintendo stuff. Although there was also the Dave the Diver tie-in
this is insane.
That came out of that State of Play that was broadcast yesterday or whatever before we recorded this week. But yes, basically for a little while there, since the Kiwami port sort of emerged on Switch it was the end of last year, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, I kind of wanted to get something in from the Yakuza series. At some point, and of course, away from Nintendo, we've got the Like a Dragon Pirate Yakuza in Hawaii that will be coming out a few days after this episode airs. So I thought even before the whole Dave the Diver thing happened with the State of Play, I thought this would be a good time to get something in, because I have a feeling we might be seeing more of this series on future Nintendo hardware.
Yes, we will be. So the song that I can't remember, did I send these? I don't even remember now. I think I did.
You did, yeah, you did.
The song that I think we're gonna go with this time is this is specifically E.G. Sakura 2000 mix, I think is what the full name is. This is an insane thing. So I'm gonna have to take a step back. At some point, there's no good explanation for this. At some point, the team that makes the Yakuza games decided they wanted to make a bunch of games set in the past. One of them is Ryuga Gotoku Isshin, which is set during the Meiji, or really it's set right before the Meiji Restoration. It's set after the black ships have arrived and the south of Japan is on, well, depending on how you want, the west of Japan is how they would refer to it, is on fire. And the shogunate's trying to deal with it, and they're just making everything worse. And what they don't realize is that the west of Japan is conspiring to deal with this problem, and the problem they want to deal with is them. So they decided they were going to make this historical fantasy version of what was happening in southwest Japan. So, yeah. And they just took their cast of characters from the first 3 Yakuza games and just laid them on top of real, actual people. It's like, these are real people who really exist, who are like on Japanese money, being depicted by Kiryu. Like, this, like, you can get bills with Ryoma, which is the character he plays, Sakamoto. Just, like, it's so fucking weird. Like, imagine if we took, I don't even know. Imagine if fucking Rico was playing George Washington in a historical fiction game. That's what you're dealing with right now. It's weird as shit. Resistance, the Rise of a Nation or some shit. That's what they made. It's nuts, but they did it. And in this weird, like, we're gonna create a historical precedent and adapt the Yakuza to the past, they went and created, because one of the things that Yakuza has in it is the karaoke. They created like a historical precedent for that by these basically bars where people could perform, and historically these do kind of exist. They may have made them more than they were, but they created what a pop song would have been in the year like 1867, something like that. I can't remember what year this is supposed to be set. And so 1864, somewhere in that neighborhood. And then this song, so that game got remade, but it originally came out in like 2013. And then when they remade the first Yakuza game, they made a modern remix that exists in the universe of a song that came back from the 1860s as what would have been popular music to sing in bars, and had Kiryu sing it. Which is funny because the performer of this sang this historicalized fake pop song version in the previous game as well, because again, they cast Kiryu, the video game character, as this historical nation builder, and then, of course, the same guy plays Kiryu, the character. It's so fucking weird. They did this twice, and then they also did this with the Fist of the North Star universe, where they made a Fist of the North Star Yakuza game, and they just replaced all the Fist of the North Star characters with Yakuza counterparts. It's weird as shit. What a weird franchise. But yeah, Ijin Sakura, they officially translate it as fighting Sakura. I don't think that's a fair translation, because it's not really fighting. It's more like stubborn or obstinate. So this is more like obstinate Sakura. Which is kind of funny to me, to be honest. So, yeah, it's weird and dramatic and unnecessary, but also it's got kind of a killer hook, because while the actor who plays Kiryu is not a professional singer, although many of the people they pair him with is maybe just to embarrass him, I don't understand. He does have a nice voice, and over the years he has gotten much better at singing, despite the fact that he is, and I repeat, not a professional singer. So, yeah, I like this one. I like this one a lot. It's kind of a good song in and of itself, but also it's so over the top that it really goes places. It also, if you won't have the lyrics, but they are also incredibly over the top and ridiculous. So enjoy. On that, it's time for us to go. Bye, everybody.
Later.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
男には咲かせにゃならねえ花だ。身を削りありつかん尊くも儚き飯。意地張って意地張って咲かせましょう。燃ゆる花びら血染め模様。泥水育ちのその花はイジ桜。分かつのはいつだって意地だぞ。何に生きるか何を守るか。答えが出たらやることはわかるだろう。かけ捨ての命ならば食いしばって食いしばって立ち向かえ。こんな馬鹿げた宿命に枯れても根付くはたくましき男さ。策は美しく昼は儚く。答えは出たぞやることはわかるだろう。本物の男ならば意地張って意地張って咲かせましょう。燃ゆる花びら血染め模様。泥水育ちのこの俺はイジ桜。歯を食いしばって食いしばって立ち向かえ。こんな馬鹿げた宿命にド派手に咲かすさ満開のイジ桜。咲かせてみせよう